You're watching West Hartford Community Television.
You're watching West Hartford Community Television.
You're watching West Hartford Community Television.
For the community, by the community.
Hi, and thank you for joining me on a very special political powerhouse wine pouring show for two guys and a lot of wine. I'm Bobby P.
And I'm James Kimbrough.
And I'm very honored to have Mr. Marco Jakian. His list of accomplishments are long and lengthy, but just the top, president of the Connecticut State Colleges and University Systems, and former chief of staff to Governor Malloy. And he also works sometimes with my wife at the Capitol. Thank you, Mark.
No, it's great to be here.
And of course, we have Mr. Jonathan Harris, Commissioner of the Department of Consumer Protection, Chairman of the Connecticut Liquor Control Commission, and former Mayor of West Hartford, of course, and also much more than that. But we want to keep it short to get to drinking of wine. Jonathan, thank you for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Also,
and wine lovers both.
Yeah.
Wine lovers
Great to be on with us.
yes.
We were drinking wine together several times.
Several times.
Yes.
All in political events, though.
Exactly,
not,
of course,
yes,
yeah.
absolutely.
And the only political
Fishing.
party we'll be talking about is the party in the bottles tonight.
Correct.
So hopefully that will be a party. So thank you both, gentlemen, for joining us tonight. And hopefully we will be treating to some interesting and good wines.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here, and we look forward to tasting.
All right. Jim, we're going to jump right into our first
All
tasting,
right.
right? So
This is yours.
of course, being summertime, you guys are going to see this show in September, but it's still summer. It's still hot. You can see Jonathan's a little warm there.
Yeah, I got my
He still has his
tie
tie
on.
on. Mark's a little more laid back, which is cool. So I went with a Domaine de la Forêt. It is a subtle rosé. In the past, some of you have seen the rosés we've done, which are on the redder side. This is so subtly red, it's almost like daring you to call it a rosé. It's like, call me rosé, I dare you. That's how subtle that is. And what's great about this particular rosé, which I just tasted recently, it is so refreshing. It's strawberry forward, it's very minerally, but at the same time on a hot day, it's really, really refreshing. So it's been sitting for a little bit, so it still should have a little bit of a chill to it. So.
And when you look at that, there's almost no color to that.
It's
at
water.
all.
Right.
It's,
Yeah.
That's
it's
what I thought you were giving me. I'm like, what's going on here?
You guys in a lot of water?
Exactly.
He gets water.
Always rehydrate, by the way. It's very important.
Well, a lot of people think rosés have to be dark red, but that's not true at all. And I know, Mark, you've had some experience with rosés.
Yes.
And I tend to like a lighter rosé.
I do too.
Because it is much more refreshing.
Is there something with the dryness also associated when it's lighter, or is that not?
It's really just how long the skin stays in contact with the juice. And it's up to the winemaker to make that decision. It can vary from a couple hours up to 36 hours, 40 hours. But when you see the really dark pink, almost reddish color, it's only about 42 hours.
Yeah, they're making a comeback though. When I was younger,
Yeah.
they had rosé,
Yes.
but it was like Matusa. I remember my parents had
That's
things like
correct.
that. And then when we went to St. Bart's a few years ago, French island, everyone was drinking rosé.
Yes.
Now it seems like here it's spreading like wildfire.
Well, I think Jim and I like to take the credit for that because 4 years ago, was it, when we did the gala at
The Mayor's Ball?
The Mayor's,
Yeah.
was it the Mayor's? Not the Mayor's Ball, the WHED gala for
Oh, yes.
something else. We were pushing rosés before they were even popular. So I like to think we had something to do with it here in Connecticut.
Yeah.
So
Trendsetters.
trendsetters. All right, so let's give this a shot.
Yeah.
Very subtle.
Like I said, it's so subtle it doesn't want to be a rosé.
Right.
Just a hint of acidic bite to it. And it takes a while, but the finish, you get a little fruit right at the end.
Yeah, all of a sudden it sneaks up on you
Yeah.
at the end. There's a little bite to it. But
It's
it's
funny.
very smooth going
Yeah.
down.
You're right, because actually in my notes when I tasted this the first time, I wrote down has a peppery finale to it,
Yeah.
and that's what you get sort of after a few minutes.
It's very good.
But it does take a while. It sneaks
No,
up
it
on you.
does.
Yeah. You
It
think the wine's
does.
done, and then it comes in and
Well,
finishes.
it kind of came on, right when it hit, came on strong.
Yep.
And then sort of went down.
But you can see why this is a great summer wine. I mean, depending on what your activities are, what you're
Absolutely.
serving, whether it's grilled chicken. They even said this would be good with salads, other type of appetizers. This would be great on the deck patio of wherever you are.
It's a good lunch wine.
Yeah.
Good lunch, good breakfast wine.
And a
I
cool
said
bottle,
lunch.
too.
I said it with lunch. Okay.
We have recommended a breakfast wine on the show in the past.
Have you
It's
really?
not new for us.
Well, John, you've been in St. Parts. They drink their mimosas in St. Parts in the morning. Of course they do.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, like I said, I tasted this, so I'm familiar with this one. So I'm giving this one a thumbs up. But please rate it any way you
I like
so
it a
wish.
lot.
I like it a lot, too.
Yeah, thumbs up for me as well.
Good.
And it must be because everybody's glass is empty. Nobody had to pour into the bad wine glass. So that's great. All right, so that was a good start.
All right.
Very good.
We're going to move on to an Italian now. This is Potarello, which means little lad or little boy, however you want to translate it. This is a blend of Sangiovese and Colorino. And if you think of a typical Chianti, most of the Chiantis you get are a blend of Sangiovese and a garbage grape called Trebbiano. Trebbiano gives Chianti that really nasty flavor, the kind of harsh finish. That's why most Chiantis kind of have to have food with it to kind of
Correct.
balance that out. Some of the better Chiantis I've had in the last year have actually been blending Colorino with the Sangiovese instead of the Trebbiano. So I think the Italians have finally woken up and said, let's really explore how great Sangiovese can taste and blend a better grape in with it. So let's give this a shot. This is from the Umbria region of Italy, so it's just to the east of Chianti, a little south of Florence.
And I should say, isn't the Sangiovese also considered possibly a summer wine in
Yeah,
general?
absolutely, yeah. And they're going to drink it year-round, but
Has a great nose. Well, that's got a little kick to it when it hits the back of your throat, doesn't it?
yep. Yeah, a little higher acidity than what we just had.
Right.
Now, we opened up these bottles only about 10 minutes ago. So I'm going to guess, and you gentlemen can agree or disagree, that these probably should have been opened up maybe a half hour, 45 minutes ago.
We could have even decanted these.
I was going
You
to
know,
say, yeah.
We have limited time here, obviously, but I think this is a wine that might actually open up a little bit better in the next 35
Yeah.
or 40 minutes.
Well,
to
we'll
me,
stay.
it's got a little.
Yeah, finish it. We're going to finish it off.
They only give us 28 minutes to film, so.
After,
If we have time, we can come back around to it at the end.
But I do find it kind of kicky
Yeah.
a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, when you
Yeah.
think of Chianti, normally you're having food with it. And this is one I think I could drink on its own. It's palatable. It's not like a California Cab where you're getting so much fruit and the higher alcohol content, which gives it a lot more body. This is kind of a, when you look at it, it's got kind of a medium body to it.
Now, was there a vintage on this, a year?
That's the 2013.
Okay.
And if you look at the 2011, I think that got a 87-point rating. So, and that actually brings up a topic I wanted to talk to you about, Jonathan.
Yes.
You look at wine ratings in the store, and oftentimes, the retailer will have what's called a shelf talker right next to the wine, which says, this wine got 88 points. And you take it home and you look it up on the internet and you say, oh, last year it got 88 points, this year it got 84 points. Consumers really have to do a lot of homework when they're shopping, and I think they rely on the retailer to provide some information to them. And it's not always up to date.
Right.
And your office kind of oversees this.
Yeah, well, we oversee liquor control, but we also oversee all the unfair trade practices. So, one could argue that if you're doing this in an intentional way and it's all over the place, there might be some sort of deceptive practice. But I mean, the reality is, one, it's really hard to enforce. It's tough enough for our liquor control agents to keep up with, just making sure that all the other laws are being adhered to. So it's tough, but it's another one of those things that we urge consumers, and we spend a lot of time just helping consumers help themselves. And you're right, what you said about relying on the experts in the store. People should go and talk to the person that's selling the wine and ask questions about it. They should just do the very simple thing of taking a look what the label says and making sure the year squares with what's on the card. And of course, it's really easy now with smartphones just to Google the particular vintage and get more information on it. So consumers really have to help themselves on this.
There's at
good
least
point.
several apps
Yeah.
that you can do that, download, and you just take a picture of the bottle.
There are,
And it comes up pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So it's one of those issues where even though, I think Jim and I have both seen it, the average consumer probably does fall prey to it, but I don't think it's as widespread with some of the more knowledgeable wine connoisseurs out there.
Personally, I think it's just the retailers getting overwhelmed. They have such a large inventory, and it's so much work to change all those shelf talkers every year. And I agree, they should be doing it to honestly represent what they're selling. But if you're at a larger retailer and they've got thousands and thousands of bottles in inventory,
And we're about compliance first. So if we see that, we'll make sure that it's changed. We're not out there trying to unnecessarily bust people. But it really, consumers have to protect themselves. And if you think about it, with all the problems, identity theft, other things that consumers face in the marketplace, it's not a good thing, but it could be worse. You're going in to buy a bottle of wine. So.
Right.
Right. And quite honestly, I'm not so sure how many consumers understand the whole concept.
Right.
So people,
You're right.
the average consumer goes in to buy a bottle of wine, and they look for a suggestion of the store or the price or so.
Well, you know where it might be interesting? If they start putting those labels on beer bottles. Can you imagine this Miller vintage from 2015 is a 8.5 bottle? That's when I think you'll see people paying more attention, because people do go crazy now over their beers.
Yeah.
So if they ever start putting a label system
Well,
on
they have
beers,
the born on dates. The Miller, or was it Budweiser that started born on dating?
Born on dating.
I think that then one of the few though, right?
Yeah.
So it's who knows? The beer industry
Yeah.
might follow the wine industry's lead, and who knows where that's going to lead.
Anyway, I just recommend, as always, following my first rule of thumb, which is drink what you like. So if you're going to the wine store and you've got a favorite wine, go ahead and buy it, and forget about if it got an 88-point rating this year or an 84-point rating last year. If you still enjoy it, keep buying it.
That's right.
The only thing I'll disagree with you on one thing, and this doesn't happen too often, is he is right about that, but they also try to charge more if that particular rating is 87 or 88.
And once it crosses that 90-point threshold, that's when you really see the prices skyrocket.
Yeah.
And at that point, if you don't feel it's worth the money anymore, steer away from it. Find something else.
And I want to point out, we haven't talked about prices, and generally there's a range on the show. So this rosé, very reasonable price for rosé. I think you can find it locally between $14, $16.99. Generally, I don't like paying more than between $10 and $25 for rosé, though you can buy them, and I've seen them when I was in Newport just a few weeks ago. I saw a $59, $69 bottle of rosé.
They're out there.
They are out
Yeah.
there. Whether or not that's noticeably different in flavor, I don't know.
I don't think you're going to get that much more.
And I know you've
out
done
of
quite a
rosé.
few big rosé tastings, and I don't know what you're getting for a $50 bottle.
We do tastings with 50 or 60 rosés at a time, and the prices are, for the most part, within that $10 to $20 range. People bring stuff that's a little more expensive every once in a while. And I don't think you get a whole lot more out of a rosé for the extra dollars.
Concur.
The Potarello, just to stay on the pricing topic, is between $20 and $25 retail. And that's a little more than Bob and I like to spend on the show. We like to keep it under $20, but I thought we've got such great guests tonight. I was going to splurge a little.
Yeah, big spenders, right?
We pull this stuff out of our own collection, so we try to keep it accessible to most of the people that watch the show. But we've had shows where we've upped the ante a few times.
Yeah.
So it's you
So
gentlemen.
Jonathan, we're going up in
Yes.
price by the time we get to the end. We're going to really have the expensive bottle.
Well, I don't know about that. But all right, so I think we got 2 thumbs up so far, Jim.
Yes.
I'm going to actually give the Portorello a half, 3/4, only
All
because
right.
I think I need to taste that in another 15 or 20 minutes.
Okay.
Because we're a little astringent for my.
If
for
we
my
have time at
taste.
the end of the show, we'll come back to it
All right.
and see how it does after.
Yeah,
So-
I actually agree with you.
So our next wine, which Jim, if you don't mind doing the pouring since it's on your end, we've never done a Coppola on the show before, and Francis Ford Coppola makes some incredibly award-winning wines. Generally, all his wines are generally accessible and affordable. They can be as low price as $12, but they can go up pretty substantially. I have personally never had a bad Coppola wine. And the Ivory Label Cab Sauvignon from 2013 is a consistent hands-on winner for most people who've tasted it. I love this particular one. I think it is smooth, it's fruit-forward. It's not overwhelming on a hot day. And it's a hot day, and I don't like overly sweet wines. And most Coppola wines, I think, are spot on in regards to what he does. And the Ivory Label is what you would consider sort of in his mid-price. That's anywhere from $17 to $22. It goes up, but I thought this was a pretty good example of an approachable, affordable Coppola wine. And I think they're really good. So hopefully you gentlemen will agree.
What a contrast from the last
Yeah.
wine.
Extremely.
I actually like
thicker.
this.
Yes.
Yeah.
I like that. It's better.
Well, you get a lot more body with
Yeah.
it.
It's smoother going.
That's right. That's the official
down.
term. Thicker is
Yeah.
my.
No, thicker's great. I hear people talk about it being
Yeah.
chewy,
Yeah.
having a heavier
Meaty.
mouthfeel,
Yeah.
meaty.
Yeah.
It's got a great creamy finish, which I
It
love.
does, and this is the kind of one that would go great with steaks on the grill, prime rib. Even tacos actually was one of the tasting things they said
Really?
to go with it. Yep. And of course, pasta with a red sauce is always going to go good with a red wine. But since I don't drink a lot, as much red wines in the summer as I do in the fall and winter, this is a standby or go-to for me all the time. I think it's really, really good.
Okay. Okay.
And true California style, it drinks well on its own, too. You don't have to have food with this. You can
Right.
sit down and enjoy a glass of this by itself.
Now, I know, Mark, you said you've actually had a couple of
I've
cocktails
had
before.
a couple bottles of that before. I am more a red wine
Mm-hmm.
drinker than not. So I drink red wine all summer long, and I find this to be a little smooth. And I have some Pinot Noirs in the summer, but I traditionally go for the reds.
And Jonathan, I can't recall. Are you a red guy mostly too? Or?
I like both actually. It depends. Some of it's seasonal, and it also some of it depends on sort of actually mood, what I'm
Sure.
interested in, and what I want on my palate. But what's the there's always these myths about temperature. People say red wine warm, or keep it at.
We've
What's the best
discussed
way to do
that
that?
several
So many
times on
times.
several shows. And I have a wine refrigerator at home, and I keep my whites at 48 degrees Fahrenheit, and I keep the reds at 52, 53 degrees. But each winemaker will suggest a different temperature for their wine. And it's going to be somewhere between 45 degrees and 60 degrees Fahrenheit. But different grape varietals perform better at different temperatures. Right. So if you have a big enough basement and a lot of wine refrigerators, you could have each refrigerator set at a different temperature and then store specific wines in there. The thing I caution people about is putting a wine in their regular refrigerator,
Right.
which gets down into the 30s, which is going to be too cold for most wines. There's a couple of
That's good to know.
Pinot Grigios. Yeah, if you're going to put a wine in the fridge, just keep it there for a couple of hours and then pull it out. Or if it's going to stay in there, until you have your friends over, pull it out an hour ahead of time, let it warm up a little bit.
And generally, you're going to lose some of the character of the wine, the white wines, obviously, if it's too cold. You're just going to mask some of the flavors.
Yeah, the fruit just disappears if it gets too
right.
cold.
But it will come back as it warms
Yes.
up.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yep. I mean, like I said, some people really like cold white wine. I mean, for Pinot Grigio, obviously, some people really want to chill. You're not missing much because it's a Pinot Grigio. There's not a lot of character, but it's still a good wine to
Right.
drink in the summer or whenever. Sauvignon Blancs, your Chardonnays, that's a different story. There are so many intricate details in each one of those. Each one might, just a degree or two might make a difference as to what you're tasting. So as a rule, though, I mean, I like rosés room temperature and a little colder, or a little chilled, or colder, yeah. For a Chardonnay, though, I think
Another fun wine exercise is to take a bottle out of the refrigerator and then drink it over a couple hours and see how it tastes each time you taste it over that time period.
So for your red wines, you actually keep them in a refrigerator
I have a wine refrigerator.
as well. You
Yeah.
don't just put them on the counter.
No.
Or
it's-
you
well,
should.
room-
If you have a cellar, you should always keep them in the cellar, only to keep
Yeah.
it more of a constant temperature.
Yeah, if you have a basement, not everybody who watches the show has a basement, but if you have a basement, that's a great place to keep it. That's a constant temperature throughout the year, and it's going to be around 58, 59, 60 degrees.
Right. If not, a closet maybe that's not getting direct heat and no light. Is that a better place?
That's
to
a
do it?
that's a good option. Bob was bragging about this bottle he had that his parents gave him. They'd kept it for 20 years, but they'd kept it on top of the radiator.
Yeah. Well, it was-
and so
Yeah, it was. I think the refrigerator or something. It was in a completely wrong place. I think it was older than that. I think it was from '82.
It was from the 80s, yeah.
And I know you were at the house that day, and we were all excited about opening up this bottle that was over 30 years old. And yeah, it sucked.
hadn't been stored properly.
Hadn't been, it's the change of temperatures that really ruins a wine. The constant changing of temperatures, I believe. So, of course, you could always just do what I do. Just don't keep them that long and just drink them.
Well, I was going to say that, but I think I'd let somebody else
No,
make
it's,
comments.
Most wines, if you keep them at a constant temperature, they're fine for extended periods of time. I mean, I'm not a huge, I have about 100 bottles at any given time. I think, Jim, you're similar. We rotate through them quite frequently. I have a few bottles that are long-term stores for, really special occasions. But generally, the average person, you buy a bottle of wine, you drink it in a week or two. Maybe a month or two, depending on what it's for. And I think that's sort of the norm.
So let me follow up with that if we have time for with that question. And that is, once you open the bottle of wine, so say you open the Coppola, and how long Does it stay before it starts to go bad? Because if you're the only one drinking a bottle,
That's a problem.
and you don't want to go through it in one evening,
There are-
and you put the cork in it
Yeah.
or whatever you put in
Yeah.
it, and then you don't
Yeah,
go
the-
back
the
to it
cork
for
lasts a day
5
or
or
two.
6 days.
Yeah. If you use a cork, it's
No,
it's
not
probably
the
going to
but
go
a
bad.
stopper. So you
Well,
put a
I
stopper.
use a stopper with a vacuum pump
suck
to
the
pull the air
air
out,
out.
and that'll keep for about a week.
Okay.
There are some newer systems that have come out on the market. There's an argon system. You can pump some argon gas into the bottle, and the argon is heavy, so it just rests right on the top of the surface of the wine, and that's an excellent way to preserve the wine. And with that system, it'll stay good for weeks at a time. There's another method. I think it's called Coravin, where you actually leave the cork in and insert a needle into the cork and suck some of the wine out to put into your glass, and then when you remove the system, the cork kind of closes back up, and so that will preserve the wine.
These are in the hundreds of dollars, though, so that's
Yeah.
the only negative. I think Tony's suggestion, which is the simplest, he was on the show a few years back, makes the most sense. It's the air that's the killer of the wine. You take the wine that's in that bottle, you put it in a smaller bottle where there's less air at the top.
Yeah, he keeps a couple of 375 milliliter bottles cleaned out and just pours, half of this bottle into that, and then puts a stopper back in it.
Will
so.
that system that puts the pin in and sucks the wine out work with a synthetic cork, or is that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, well,
Because you're seeing more and more of the synthetic.
You
cork.
are.
And more screw tops.
a lot of screw tops these days. And the screw top used to mean it was a really cheap wine, but that's not
Right.
the case
Yeah.
anymore.
No, not anymore, absolutely. So Jim, let's get into our grand finale
All right, the
here.
last one. Now, Bob and I had a little debate before the show how we wanted to finish, because we have 2 cabs, and the Coppola had a real creamy finish.
Okay.
And you let me know what you think of this one and whether or not it should go last.
Now, the color looks similar, though, to the Coppola.
Yeah, very similar color, very dark hue,
And these are both
good body.
California, the
Yep.
Coppola
It
and
looks
the-
darker, actually. A little bit.
great legs on this.
Damn it. That is smoother.
Oh, I like that a lot.
Little tannin, a little tart finish.
Right at the end.
So it's just a question of what do you want at the end? You want a creamy finish with the Coppola, or you want something a little more tart with the deep sea?
That's still on my tongue right now.
Yeah.
The Coppola sort of vanished by now. Yours is still sort of lingering there on my palate.
And this one hit the roof of my mouth too. It's
Wow.
Yeah, it's, it's in the back and up.
Yep.
And this is the 2013?
Yeah.
That's very good. That's very good.
Yeah, it's really nice, smooth right off the bat, but sort of hits you and wants you to remember it a few seconds later.
More.
So I like that a lot. And is that from the Napa Valley region, or is that from another?
That's from Paso Robles.
Paso Robles. Yeah, I can see that from here. And you recently tasted this one, or is this?
Yeah, this is a new find for me. And again, this is $20 to $25, so I spent a little bit more than Bob and I like to spend, but I wanted to have
Thank
something
you.
impressive for you guys. So.
You know, see, Mark, Jonathan, I'm going to hear about this. He actually spent more, and I spent a little less, thinking that I was coming with the price point that he was. So now he's going to have that over my head for a while. So I'm going to have to amp it up next time when we do our show.
Well, you'll have to have us back, and you'll have to prove that you're, that you've got it.
Well, I heard some grief because Andy Fleischman saw my wife recently and gave her some grief, like, why haven't I been on the show? Scott's been on the show. Now, Mark, you're on the show. Jonathan, I told her, what can I tell you? We're a popular show. I can't have everybody on the show. So maybe I'll save the more expensive stuff for him, but I don't know.
I don't think he would appreciate it.
You're probably right. Yeah, you're probably right. But I'm going to say, Jim, I'm going to say that's probably my favorite of the
All
three
right.
reds we've tasted so far today.
I'm going to go with the Coppola. I think that was my favorite tonight.
Well, we still have time. I think we got 8 minutes. I want to try the Portorella again to see
Okay.
if that's opened up a little bit.
Pour that again, see how that's tasting now.
Does anybody else want to try that with me?
Yes,
Of course.
Yes, because I usually shy away from this.
The Italian.
Yeah, because it's usually too heavy for me. And you're right. If you're at a restaurant and you're having a veal chop coming, it might work. But
Yeah, my experience has been Italian wines just don't taste well on their own.
No, they don't.
And they're meant to go with food. And they really kind of open up when you have the right kind of
do.
food with them.
Right.
If you're eating the wrong food, then it's still going to be a bad wine. But if you're eating, usually some kind of tomato-based dish or some kind of Mediterranean food,
right.
they open up and they just perform so well under those circumstances.
I was just in Positano on the Amalfi Coast with my wife for a destination wedding a few
Do you
weeks
ever
ago.
work?
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. If you're in the same bar, it should end up.
Well, St. Martin's was a while ago, but Positano, I mean, but the wine there, we did typically drink it with meals, and the local wines there were very good.
Right.
But it wasn't stuff that you wanted to have, like, around the beach during the day.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's just a different philosophy in Italy. Yeah,
This
they
has
want-
gotten a lot smoother.
It certainly has, and not even as long as I thought it would be.
Right.
It's only been 10 minutes since we tasted the first sip.
So if you decanted it, I mean, it was.
I think this now starts moving up there. I think this is almost as good as the last one.
So you're back to a whole thumb now?
Yeah, well, it's a whole thumb now.
Okay, all right.
But this is another classic example. We've been doing the show almost, in October, to be almost 6 years, right? We're
Yeah.
going to be doing our 6th holiday show. Every time we do the show, I'm always amazed by how I can change my opinion on a wine as the show moves along. That was very astringent at first, and now it is so incredibly smooth. And I think it's one of those things that's going to get better as.
Well, and keep in mind, your palate has changed too. You've had the 2 cabs since then. So
Right.
that's going to affect what's going on in your mouth.
So what is the average time you should keep a bottle open before you?
That depends on
drink
the
it?
wine.
Does it?
And it's just, you have to have experience drinking that wine.
Okay.
But a good rule of thumb is, if you open a wine and it doesn't taste that good, go ahead and decant it, and then come back to it in another 30 minutes and see how it's changed.
Okay. Usually I can't wait that long.
Yeah, well, that's the problem. Yeah, but if it's good right out of the bottle, go ahead and drink
But
it.
Mark, Jonathan, we talked about this recently. When you go to a restaurant, and even if you get an expensive bottle of wine off the list, well, guess what? They're not decanting that for you.
Right.
They're opening that right at the table, and you're actually drinking sometimes a really good wine when it's really not ready to be drunk yet. But very few people want to decant it at a restaurant.
Well, some restaurants will decant for you. Some of them do it, and this is the really high-end restaurants.
Those
do
fancy
they do it
Boston ones,
off the-
right?
Yeah,
If you're-
Fleming.
Okay.
Oh, we got Flemings here. I think they'll
yeah,
do
but
that.
I was going to say, if you ask,
Yep.
a lot of restaurants have decanters, and they'll go ahead and decant that for you.
You'll get the looks, though, from the customer.
No. You look like the cool guy who knows what he's doing.
Right. They've got all the money at that time. Really expensive bottle. No, this is very good. Second time around.
So are there any events that you gentlemen would like to promote or anything? Any special fundraising or charity? Or obviously, I know the summer's still in full gear.
Yeah, no, summer is in full gear.
Yeah.
We're, in
Vacation mode?
Yeah, vacation mode, getting ready to welcome students back to my system in about a month, and looking forward to a very productive, 2016-17. Not a lot of vacation, and
You and Jason
So
aren't
do
going
you
anywhere?
travel?
we like to go places when it's in the fall and when
Smart
it's
man.
cold. And we actually just won a safari, at
Really?
a silent auction at the St. Joseph's Gala to South Africa.
Good wine in South Africa.
Well, we're still, I think I had a couple glasses of wine before I bid on it. That's the problem. So we'll be looking to go there sometime over the next year.
Go, yeah. In our winter, their summer, right?
I guess the
Amazing.
seasons are
Yeah.
all different, so we're looking at the
And
best
Jonathan,
times.
were you off to Antarctica now? Or?
No, I mean, I did
You're
my
done?
travel. I did my one trip. We'll do a little bit, maybe a weekend here or there or something, but there'll be wine at it, though. As a matter of fact, my wife complained when I told her I was doing this. Lucy's like, why are you on? I mean, why wasn't I invited? Because I'm the
should've
wine
brought-
drinker.
Do what I do. Always blame Carrie for everything. Always blame Carrie.
I do that in
Always
my
care.
job. I blame Carrie. So
So, gentlemen, I want to thank you both for being on. Mark, Jonathan, great guest, and I really appreciate you taking time out of your very busy schedule to come on the show.
this has been thoroughly enjoyable.
great.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
having
Thank
us.
you.
Thank you very much.
And Jim, always pleasure having you come down from Boston. I know you're a busy guy now, and I appreciate you coming down and doing the show with me.
Thank
And
you.
to all of you, to all of our viewers, thanks for watching. And until next time, keep all of us in your wine cellar.